Without further ado, let's get started. So, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Anna, and I will be the MC for tonight's event. And I am not a guide for the cross country trip in 2025, but I was a guide in 2023. And I had the pleasure of doing this trip alongside two fantastic co-guides, Martin and Brent, who will actually be two of your guides going into the 2025 trip, which is awesome. So, alongside those two gentlemen doing this year's trip, you will also have a former XC veteran joining us this year. His name is Scott. And you actually have the pleasure of having both Scott and Brent on today's call as the guides to be able to come in and answer any questions that you might be having. So feel free to jump in and ask any questions to the guides. And at any point, if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to throw them into the chat box and we will try to get to them throughout the presentation. You have a lot of brains here to be able to answer any questions you have. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll invite you guys to pop in and ask any questions out loud. Now, to round off this year's guide team next to Brent, Marty, Scott, you will also be having a truck travel guide who's been around for 10 years. His name is Kyle Flanagan. He's never done the truck travel cross country trip, but he's led other tours across the country before. So he's really excited to finally do it with TT. And then last but not least, the fantastic Maggie will also be joining you guys this year as well. This will be her first cross country tour, so you'll all be in it together, but she's so excited to meet you all and to get started. All right, so the purpose of today's event. So like I said, this is a way for us to get everyone together to maybe see some faces that you'll become quickly acquainted with throughout the rest of the fall as you embark on this amazing journey. And then as well as just to set some expectations. Trek travel does provide vacations of a lifetime, but to be completely honest, cross country is more like a mission of a lifetime. So we're all going to go over some frequently asked questions and we'll cover some information and some important details that we think you need to know to make sure that you are fully prepared to take on this endeavor. We'll also run through what a day on cross country actually looks like. And then, like I said before, we'll end with a little open forum where you can feel free to turn on your camera and your mic and ask any questions you might have. At this point, before we go any further, I am going to ask everyone to please mute themselves. You can leave your videos on if you like, but please just make sure your audio is muted to make sure we don't have any background noise. All right, awesome. Let's dive into a trip overview. So nothing screams endurance quite like choosing to ride your bike across the entirety of the United States. So just finishing one day on a trip like cross country is a feat in and of itself, but doing it for 48 days in a row becomes a pretty serious undertaking. And it's the little things that you can do now to start preparing and set yourself up for success that will make the biggest difference once you embark on this adventure. Now, we say all of this, and everything I say in this presentation is not meant to scare you, but we really just want to make sure that you are both prepared physically and mentally for this trip. And we do that by setting these expectations and giving you all the tools that you need to succeed and to make sure that you have as much fun as possible out there on the tour. So, proper training not only means time in the saddle, but also learning how to fuel yourself, hydrate properly, pace yourself, conserve your energy, and last but not least, how to recover. We'll go a little bit more in depth on how to recover and what that actually looks like in a little bit. But I do want to mention we have sent out 2 newsletters so far in your email inbox. If you haven't seen those, we'll have some of the guides actually link the newsletters in the chat. But the first one that went out recently into your email goes in depth about proper pacing, the do's and don'ts of what to expect on cross country, and it highlights some common mistakes that people will make going into this trip. And we have some ways on actually how to remedy those mistakes. So if you haven't read through that yet, open up that link and it's definitely worth reading after this presentation. All right, let's talk about packing. This is a hot topic of conversation. So first, I just want to say, remember that you are staying in the United States and that yes, we will some nights feel like we are in the middle of nowhere, but you are still able to get to into small towns, into convenience stores and things like that to pick up some of the smaller, maybe less essential packing goods. So when it comes to packing, let's focus on making sure that you have the gear and the nutrition and all of those things that you might need. And let's leave those 4 extra tubes of toothpaste at home because we could always resupply on toothpaste when we're out on the road. So I'm going to run through a couple pro tips that we have for you guys. And if you're going to listen to any of the pro tips when it comes to packing, it's going to be the first one. The first pro tip is to bring 3 bags with you on trip. 2 of your bags are going to be small to medium sized suitcases, ideally with wheels, so you have to carry a lot less stuff around, instead of just having one big giant suitcase. The reason we ask for 2 suitcases is because one suitcase can pack everything that you'll need for your week at a time. It can have all of your kits and your clothes for that week's dinners. You can also have your toiletries, your PJs, the essentials. This is the suitcase that you will take back and forth to your hotel room and the trailer every single day because you are responsible for carrying your own luggage. And the lighter weight we can make it after you just rode 120 miles in a day will just go that much farther. Your second suitcase is going to be your suitcase that has everything else in it that you don't necessarily need at every given point. Maybe you are about to endure a week of 90 degrees every single day. You can probably leave your sweatshirt and your sweatpants and all of your rain gear and all of those things in that second suitcase. Your guides will mark that suitcase with a little ribbon and it will live in the trailer. You can access that suitcase at any point if you need to. Ideally, before every morning we load up and like pile on all the other suitcases on top of it. Ideally before that, but you are able to access the suitcase, but it's not necessarily required for you to take it back and forth to your hotel room every single day. I promise you, if you're going to listen to one tip, that's what you're going to want to listen to. Your third bag is going to be your day bag. Your day bag is going to have anything in it that you need to make sure that you're supported out there on the ride. You want your layers in there, you want your extra change of shoes in there, you want your nutrition and your hydration that you're going to grab throughout the day at the rest stops in there, anything that you might need. However, your day bag is not meant to hold your phone, your wallet, or your ID. Those 3 things should be on you at all times. All right, pro tip number 2, laundry. Your trip is nearly 7 weeks long, so we know that packing can feel a little daunting, but we like to break it into 4 different sections, about 8 to 10 rides between rest days in 4 different segments. So we suggest that you pack for about 5 to 6 days and plan to do laundry on every rest day and between every rest day. Before you guys go out, we will share with you our Ride with GPS itinerary, which will outline the route for each day, as well as the hotel that we'll be staying in, and maybe any things to see along the route. But also in that, we'll also say what hotels have laundry available. So you can go ahead and plan ahead at each rest day and say, okay, in 5 days' time, this hotel has laundry. I'm going to plan on doing it then. If I miss it or forget, day 6 also has laundry, so I can also do it then as well. So just something to help you guys plan ahead and just kind of stay on top of. All right, pro tip number 3, consider sending yourself packages at the rest day hotels. This is particularly helpful if you require some specific nutrition products where you can always buy, like I said, more tubes of toothpaste and shampoo and those kinds of things, but you might not always be able to find your favorite electrolyte mix in the middle of South Dakota. So just kind of consider packing yourself a little boxes before you leave and having them shipped out to the rest day hotels. Now we say the rest day hotels because we are at the rest day spots for 2 nights. So it gives you more chance of actually getting a package, making sure that it's on time. Ideally, you ship it a few days ahead of time. And then if you do this, I do recommend calling the hotel as well and just letting them know, I have a package. This is my name. I will be arriving on this date. Please hold it for me. And they'll have no problem doing that. But just kind of consider that. Another something to think about too is maybe just sending yourself a nice fresh new jersey or new kit or something to help brighten your day. And I don't know, maybe your favorite kit you didn't bring on trip with you. So ship it along to one of the spots and allow yourself to wear something new out there. All right, pro tip number 4, last and but not least, you should not be bringing any new gear on cross country. Everything should be tried and true. You know what works. That goes for your bibs, most importantly, to make sure that you're staying comfortable on the bike. But that also goes for your jerseys and all of your nutrition and things like that. Of course, you want to be able to try new things when you're out there, but definitely holding true to what you know works because it's worked in your training and what's comfortable. Everything should be broken in and not new. Now, if you do have some bibs and things that may be a little bit old and are getting worn down during your training, but you know you really like them, order a new pair about a month or two before you depart so you can break them in before you actually go out on the road. Because the last thing we want to deal with on this trip is saddle sores. It is a common thing, so let's try and do what we can to help mitigate it from the start. All right, that's pretty much it for our packing tips. As far as a packing list goes, in our second newsletter, we have a really great outlined list that addresses everything that you should bring for riding on the bike, off the bike essentials, anything that you need for inclement weather, and then as well as any other additional gear and things that might be good for you guys to have, like a book or a tablet or whatever it might be. This list is pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to run through it. You can feel free to pull up that second newsletter and look through that. That's a great resource when it actually comes time in August when you actually start packing. So feel free to have that up with you while you're doing that. All right, some bike essentials. So a few things that I do want to highlight. I don't think that anyone on this trip is planning to bring their own bike. I think everyone is planning to ride ours, which is great. However, if anyone does change their mind and they do decide to bring their own bike, please let Joe know as soon as possible so we can make sure that those expectations are set as well. As far as what you should be bringing, if you're going to bring one thing, it's going to be your saddle. Like I said, saddle sores are definitely a thing that we'll encounter. So let's do what we can to mitigate it. And the best thing that you can do is bringing the saddle that you've been training on, the saddle that your booty is adjusted to. Pop that thing off your bike, take it to a bike shop. They can help you out and throw that on your bike when you get there. Your guides will take care of that for you. But that'll just be one little thing that can make a huge difference on your cross country trip. As far as helmets and shoes and pedals go, helmets, feel free to bring your own if you like. We do supply Bontrager Wavecell or Trek Wavecell helmets. But if you have one that you know that you really like, feel free to bring it. Totally up to you. Shoes and pedals are your responsibility, unless for pedals you do ride our mountain bike pedals or, I'm sorry, Shimano mountain bike or the clipless road cleats or road pedals. If you ride either of those, we've got your back. We've got a picture of those on the next slide as well so you can see what those look like. If you ride anything else, Garmin power pedals, Look pedals, whatever it may be, you need to make sure that you bring those so you're compatible with your own cleats when you get on trip. Other things that I always recommend bring an extra pair of cleats. You'd be surprised how quickly you can run through them. This is more so important if you're running road cleats. It's maybe not as needed if you're running more robust mountain cleats, but definitely something to consider. And then also make sure that you have cleat covers, especially for those road cleats, making sure it makes it a little easier to walk around and protects them from getting worn out. And then it's also not a bad idea to have an extra pair of cleat covers if you can. Last thing I'll mention about bringing, if you'd like, we will be running tubeless tires on cross country. We have for the last couple of years, and we've had some great success with it. We do have your guides will be equipped with dyno plugs and darts and things like that should you encounter a plug or a hole that needs a dart. However, if you would like to make sure that you have your own on trip, we do suggest bringing one, maybe that you know that works really well. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry, your guides have got your back and you can just forget I even said anything. All right, moving into some gadgets. So we do provide Trek car back rear radar lights on your bikes this year. So the car backs will be paired with our Garmin Edge Explorer 2s that you're also equipped with on your bike. So those will be talking to each other along with your bike itself. So everything should be connected and we can help make sure that you are all set up and connected. But if you are bringing your own ride with or your own Garmin GPS or Wahoo or whatever it may be, or your own radar, that's awesome as well. Your guides will make sure that those are all hooked up and synced correctly and just all connected. But it is a good idea to know how your own equipment works because we might not be familiar with the latest and greatest gadgets in that front. But feel free to bring your own if you have them, especially because it just makes you that much more comfortable knowing how to read it and how to use it. You can also consider bringing cadence sensors. Just make sure that they are compatible with our bikes. If it's one that can just be slapped onto any bike, that's great. Consider bringing a heart rate monitor as well, especially if you're training with one. Those are great to have. And then any other bike accessories that you have, if you want a GoPro, if you want a mirror, whatever it may be, feel free to bring all of those, and your guides can make sure that they can get you set up on those properly. Other things to bring: chamois butter. It can get a little gnarly if everyone starts sharing chamois butter, and we don't supply chamois butter for that reason. So please, if you do use it, please consider bringing your own tube. Any medications and prescriptions that you have, if it's something that your guide should be aware of that you are taking, or they should know where it is inside of your stuff, please do let them know of that information as well. And then I'll talk a little bit more about some sports nutrition later, but if there is something that you are tied to, if you know that gel goos really work well for you, or the little gummies really work well for you, or scratch or anything like that, we do ask that you bring your own supply, because it is a lot to be able to supply enough for every single day for every single guest on trip. So if there's something that you know that works for you, please be prepared to have that nutrition with you on trip. And that's where those little shipments on rest days come into play. Okay, I'm gonna take a little break from talking for a second, and I'm gonna invite Brent and Scott to jump in and add in any packing tips, trip overview expectations, anything like that that you might want to throw in.
Perfect. Thank you, Anna, so far. Hi, everyone. My name is Scott, one of the guides for this year. Pretty excited to meet you all. It's going to be a great time. My biggest piece I just want to throw out there, Anna kind of already touched on it, but your extra technology that you bring with you, have a working knowledge of how your technology works. The team and I, we are pretty well versed in a lot of stuff, but there's always going to be stuff that we just don't know how to work it. And it'll save you the hassle and the time. If you get out there and things aren't working correctly. So if you have power pedals, for example, making sure you bring extra batteries with you, knowing how to resync them to your Garmin and stuff like that. Again, we're pretty well versed in that, but that kind of stuff just becomes that little headache first thing in the morning. You're trying to get out the door really quick, and not knowing that sometimes can just delay the day a little bit. That's kind of my biggest piece, though, for sure.
Awesome. Brent, you got anything to add? You are muted.
Gotcha. Sorry, I lost my little mute button. So, hi, I'm Brent. I'm one of the guides. And just to kind of touch on a couple things, that spam photo of everyone in their jerseys, we will go basically right near the Spam Museum in Austin, Minnesota. I've had it circled and highlighted every year I've done this trip. I haven't made it, but I think this is going to be the year to get one of those sweet jerseys. For packing, one thing that we kind of didn't mention as well with the two bag situation. On the rest days, we'll bring both bags in for you. So you'll have everything on the rest days. All of your stuff will be out of our trailer. So that'll kind of give you an idea to like repack or, kind of prepare for the next little segment. Also, we do understand that packing, is a little bit tough, and it's hard to wrap your mind around right now. So within the first probably 2, 3, maybe 4 days, we do expect you guys to be asking for your tagged bag or the bag that's going to be in the trailer, just until you get like a really good idea of like the best way of packing. So don't worry about that. We'll have plenty of grace for that. And then I know Anna touched on this, but anything, we had some questions in the chat as well. About the Garmin's and then pedals and stuff like that. So anything that's going to make you feel comfortable, if you have your own mountain pedals or your road pedals, we do provide them, but they're always a little bit different. So making sure that you just bring that. We recommend you guys being as comfortable as possible. And then the same with the Garmin device. We do provide the Edge Explorer 2. But if you have the 1030 or the 1040 or 1050, and it's already connected to your sensors, whether it's heart rate or power pedals, anything like that, super important just to bring that. We can load the maps on there for you guys as well. And then I was just trying to look at any other questions in the chat as well. So feel free, as we're doing this, to throw some questions in the chat. But that's all I have. Crushing it.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, let's keep it rolling. So things that are included in this trip, you'll see it on the screen, the whole list of, your hotel, your guides, breakfast, most of your lunches and your dinners. Some nights that aren't included in as far as meals go are going to be specifically your rest day, lunch and dinners will be on your own, and then a couple other lunch and dinners sprinkled throughout the trip, but most of them are included, especially your lunches. As you're out there and your guides are supporting you. We'll touch on that in a little bit. The best thing that I can mention that's the biggest thing, and I think why a lot of people book this trip with us to get the inclusion, is the incredible guide team that you'll have out there supporting you. I can't speak to them enough. They are awesome, and they will just make sure that they can do everything that they can to make sure that this is a fun and memorable trip for you as well. So a few things that aren't included. I'm sure you guys are all aware of some of these things, but airfare to and from your transportation, lodging before and after, these kinds of things. Gratuity for your Trek travel guides is not included, and then any accommodation for family or friends that are visiting along the way that might need extra or separate rooms as well. None of those things are included and all need to be purchased separately. All right, let's jump into expectations for day one. So day one, your guides will pick you up in Portland, Oregon, and they will shuttle you 2 hours out to the coast to Astoria, where the ride actually starts. So from here, we'll have a picnic lunch together. You'll get to mix and mingle, get to know each other, kind of shake out a little bit of the nerves. And during this time, your guides are taking all of your gadgets, your gears, your pedals, all of these things, and putting them onto your bikes for you. Now, just we do ask that it might take a little bit more time than normal, just because you might have more equipment than normal as far as the entire group goes. So please just be patient with them on that. And then we'll go into a bike fit, make sure that you guys are comfortable on your bikes, knowing your guides are fully aware that there will be plenty of tweaks to be had within the first day, the first week, maybe in the first 10 days, just to make sure that these are super dialed for you guys and making them extra comfortable. These are your stallions for 48 days, and so we want to make sure that they are set up perfectly for you. Now, after our initial safety talk and bike fit, then we actually get to ride out to the coast. All right. So from the coast, today's ride is only 30 miles, and we ask that you treat it like a warm-up ride. You have so far to go in front of you from this day, so please do yourself a favor and do not go out too fast. Do not set yourself up for failure for the rest of the trip. Once you get to the coast, there is an expectation that you will walk or carry your bike across the beach in order to get to the ocean, so just be prepared for that. Oftentimes guests will take off their shoes and just walk barefoot. Just be mindful of that expectation as well. So at the end of the ride, once we make it back to the beautiful hotel that we'll be staying in, we get to mingle at the end of the ride, and we set you guys loose to go shower as your guides kind of get themselves situated for that dinner. And our first night's dinner together is at a lovely little restaurant in Astoria, and we'll gather for social hour and dinner. Once again, your guides will stand up and go over some more trip logistics and further just set some more nitty-gritty expectations for what's to come. You'll also at this point get to do a round of introductions to help break the ice even farther and get to know your fellow cohort as you guys embark on this incredible journey ahead. Just remember that you guys are a team in this mission, and so everyone is out there to support each other. For day two, this is the start of what a typical day at cross country will look like. Now, I do want to say, please give yourself some grace as you get settled into the trip in the first 10 days. This is where you're starting to figure out what your routine is, you get into the swing of things, and you start to allow yourself to trust that your guides really do have your back. But day two is we really hit the ground running. This is our first century of the trip as we ride from Astoria to Portland. And you'll get to see some amazing quiet roads. I remember riding through the incredible trees that just line out the coast of Oregon. It's amazing. But we will also be seeing some slightly busier roads as well, because we are riding into one of the biggest cities that we'll see on the trip. And so we will see some higher traffic riding as well. That does require some vigilant riding and awareness. So we do try to avoid this as much as possible on this trip. We've tweaked these routes 100 times, but this is just inevitable as we do go through a bigger city such as Portland. All right, at the end of day two is when your guides will separate you into 2 or 3 different riding groups, A, B, and C. If you've spoken to somebody who's done cross country in the past, whether it be a guide or a guest, I'm sure this has been a topic of conversation that has come up. These groups that your guides will break you into are not intended to hurt anyone's feelings or create any sort of competition between the group. These are intended to serve in the best interest of the group as a whole, and intended to help clump the group together in order to arrive at lunch as close to each other as possible, as well as to get to that next night's hotel, ideally no later than 4 p.m. Now, of course, on a trip like this, we do expect that there's going to be varying speeds of riders, and that is totally okay. But separating out the rider times is one way that your guides can help better support everyone and help manage the various speeds that we'll encounter on your trip. Your guides do also have the ability to set a cutoff time for a certain day's ride, and you should be prepared to get into the van or just take a boost if you do come close to that cutoff. This is intended to help you get the proper recovery time that you deserve and that you need to have, and to give the guides time to get the dinner arrangements all set and to get themselves restocked to be able to support the group for the next day. So just want to put that out there as well. I'm not beating around the bush when I say that this topic of group separation can be a bit touchy for folks, but I'm going to be very direct when I say that you start every day with the group that you are assigned. Things are always a little bit flexible. Things will change around. Your guides will move you from group to group and just kind of trying to figure out what works best. So do expect some shifts and some changes. And if you are feeling like you need to start with a different group, please go speak to your guides. They will make sure that your expectations are set for where you should be for each day and just kind of maybe the speed that you should be riding in that day as well. Sometimes we've had guests approach us and say, I'm not really feeling that great today. I'm going to be taking it much slower. Can I start with an earlier group? That is totally fine, but please just make sure you are communicating to your guide teams to make sure everyone is on the same page. All right, as far as starting each day goes, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details, but pretty much as a general rule of thumb, breakfast will always begin 1 hour before the first group starts. So group A will be the first group to depart. Breakfast typically starts somewhere between 6 and 7, sometimes later, sometimes earlier, but depending on the hotel and depending on that day's riding ahead. But whenever breakfast does start, so say it starts at 6:30, that means group A will plan to depart at 7:30. And then the spacing of the time will depend on what your guides feel. Sometimes it's 15 minutes, sometimes it's 30 minutes, and we'll go from each group subsequently from there. And like I said, starting times are going to vary every single day depending on when breakfast starts at the hotel, depending on what time we can check into the next hotel at, depending on the weather that day's ahead or that you'll encounter that day, or even the distance that you'll be riding that day as well. So a lot of different factors can change as far as what the start time looks like. So it will not be the same every single day. This will all be listed in Ride with GPS, and your guides will also be making sure to communicate this as well. Support stops and feed zones. So these are intended to make sure that you have what you need to keep you rolling throughout the day. So you need to make sure that you have everything with you in your day bag that you personally need for support. And you can expect to see the van about 18 to 25 miles, or every 18 to 25 miles. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Again, your guides will let you know. And out there supporting you, you will have 3 vehicles. You'll have 2 truck travel vans, and you will have 1 unmarked. Oh, look at me, I got some balloons. You will have 1 unmarked minivan that will also be out there supporting you. And these vans will all leapfrog each other to make sure that everyone's getting the support that they need. At snack stops, we will be providing Kate's bars, noon hydration, and a mix of different sweet and salty snacks, as well as additional nutrition, some of the things like you can see pictured in on this beautiful table. But these stations, like I said, are intended to keep you rolling throughout the day and to provide a boost when you need it, but they are not intended to be your only source of fuel. We do often have on the table goos and extra hydration mixes as well. But we do ask that you do not plan to rely on these because, like I said, if everyone were to have a certain amount every single day, we just simply don't have enough room in our trailer to be able to supply that kind of nutrition. So if you have something you know works for you, please make sure you have what you need. All right, feed zones. Feed zones are what we call lunch, but we call them on cross country feed zones. The focus on these is to make sure that you are getting fueled with nutritious lunches. They are a little different than a truck travel picnic. If you've been on a truck travel picnic or a normal truck travel trip and you've seen one of our elaborate picnic spreads, This is maybe a little bit less elaborate, but these will always offer healthy, fueling, and nutritious snacks. Your guides do a great job, and these are oftentimes the best meals on trip, we promise. So every day's offerings will kind of vary, but we will always make sure to have some staples out on the table, like peanut butter and jelly fixings, because sometimes that's all you want and you just want to keep on rolling, and that's fine. If you do see food on the table 2 days in a row, that is because your guides are doing what they can to help try and use up some food and have a lot less food go to waste. So we also will be adhering to any dietary restrictions or anything like that. So if there's anything that hasn't been communicated to Joe yet as far as dietary restrictions, please do let him know, and he will make sure your guides are aware and that your guides are ready to support you and to serve you out on those feed zones. At the end of the day, once we've gotten to the hotel, you will see a van and snack table set up upon arrival once you get there. You will also be asked to take your bike to your room. Yes, that's right. You get to sleep next to your stallion every single night. So you're not necessarily sleeping alone because you have a nice little roommate with two wheels. You're also in charge of charging all of your lights, your Garmin, your car back, or whatever it is, whether it's our gear or your gear, you are in charge of charging that equipment every single night. We will equip you with a little block with a couple different USB ports in it and all the cords as well. So ideally, if you're using micro USB cords, then you can be able to charge everything right then and there. So we will supply that for you to make it a lot easier on you at the end of the day. And then dinners are going to vary every single day. Sometimes we have a buffet. Sometimes we have rolling reservations at the restaurant down the street from 5 to 7. Go whenever you want. And then often other times we'll do group dinners. And then sometimes we even do catered dinners at hotels as well. So it will vary depending on where we're at. And anything that's supplied by Trek Travel, we pay for all food, desserts, and non-alcoholic beverages for any meals, like I said, that are covered by us. If you do plan to purchase any alcohol, most of the time it is on you. During our social hours, we do cover alcoholic drinks, but do plan on covering most of your alcohol on trip. All right, reality setting. Again, I'm saying all this not to scare you, but we do want to make sure you hear it from us before you depart on this trip. So there's a few things I want to highlight. One is breakfast. We are often staying in small towns in some simple, very simple accommodations. So I'm not going to lie when I say that breakfast is one of the hardest meals on cross country. Lunches are something to look forward to. Dinners are usually great, but breakfast, you will get sick of eating powdered eggs every day. That's a given. And so we do our best to try and supplement where we can with some local cafes, and sometimes we take you to some other spots in town. However, just based on the nature of this trip and our schedule and what the scheduled ride is, oftentimes we don't have time to be able to do that. So just kind of setting that expectation now of if there's something that you know that you can help supplement that you want to bring, feel free. But this is kind of the general gist of it, and it just kind of is what it is. Finishing times. These are long days out there on the bike, and one of the things that we can use to help mitigate some of the later days is our staggered group times to help kind of clump the group together a little bit more. But there is an expectation that you should be getting to the next night's hotel by 4 p.m. each day. Like I said before, not only so the guides can get themselves situated, but also so you have time to recover and get yourself ready for the next day. So if at any point your guides ask you on trip to get into the van, whether that's because of inclement weather, whether it's because unsafe construction zone that you're going to see, and whether it'll help with the group timing or just to help you out, please do adhere to their asks. They will only ask if they really need you to, and they will always have your best intentions in mind. But just want to set that expectation as well. All right, I told you I'd talk about recovery, so this is it. This is probably, in my personal opinion, one of the most important aspects of cross country that I don't think is talked about enough. But if you can nail a recovery routine, you will thrive on this cross country trip. You need to make sure that you're giving yourself not only the proper recovery time that your body needs every single night, so starting early, finishing, and allowing your body to recuperate, but also making sure that you have some sort of a routine that you know works for you. Because when you're riding this far day after day after day, your body is taking a beating. And so you need something that'll help recuperate your muscles. I know some people bring Theragun, some people bring a yoga mat and they make sure they stretch every day. Some folks, when I did it in 2023, they brought their Normatec pants. It was kind of a lot, but it worked for them and they loved it and they swore by it. So whatever that may be for you, please find something that will allow you to take care of your body and just be a little bit more intentional about how you're going to be setting yourself up for the next day's ride. All right, last one. The train doesn't stop moving. We are on a set schedule and we keep things rolling every single day. We've got dinner reservations and restaurant and hotel reservations set for the next day on every single day of trip. So as things happen, things always do come up and we roll with the punches. But if there is something, let's say specific that you want to make sure that you see on trip, maybe it's like it's a museum that is in this next town that you're dying to go see. Talk to your guides about starting extra early or even taking a boost in the van just to make sure you get to that next place to be able to enjoy that museum that you're dying to go see. Because of the nature of this trip, and these are long days out on the bike, we do want to make sure that we're also taking some time to have a little bit of fun. So if there is something like this, we can try our best to make it work as long as it's en route. But just something to consider because you will be tired at the end of each day. And so I think prioritizing maybe some of the highlights would be good for you. All right, Brent, Scott, I'm sending it back to you guys. Anything more to add as far as reality settings and the first few days on trip?
I think, excuse me, I would like to say, kind of piggyback on what Anna said about the groups. It's always kind of a sensitive thing. And, the first couple of days, people are really, really like, going outside of their rider level because they want to be in a certain group. You want to finish first. We have all seen it many times. People ruin their whole trip in the first few days. And what I mean is that um, people going out way too hard. I mean, we are all excited, so that's one thing. But just going out really, really too hard outside of your rider level. Kind of worried about these groups. Don't worry, it's all going to fall into place. It's all going to be great. But I know we're excited, but let's just kind of take it within our own means the first week or so. But other than that, I think yeah, this is perfect.
Perfect. The only thing I want to add is just talking about the snack stops. So not the lunch specifically, but it's really just snack stops. As Anna was talking about, timing is so important every day to get you as quickly as we can to that recovery point. So there may come a point as we're kind of getting further along in the trip where you get to a snack stop and Brent's grabbing your water bottle. I'm handing you Kate's bars, as we get to know you, kind of what nutrition you want to help really kind of get you on the way. The last thing we want to see is that you're there for 15, 20 minutes. Now your body's cooling down and then you're getting back on the ride. You still have 80 miles to go. We want to get you keep moving again, get to that next town as quickly as possible. So just like splitting you into groups, it's not personal. It's, looking out for your recovery and trying to get you as much sleep and recovery as we can before for the next big day.
Awesome. Great additions. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, let's talk about rest days. So rest days on trip, we have 4 of them: Missoula, Montana, Rapid City, South Dakota, Madison, Wisconsin, and Corning, New York are our 4 rest days this year. Now, these days are intended for you to do exactly what they're called and rest, but they're also intended for you to take care of yourself. And if you're even up for it, you can feel free to explore on your own as well. These are some fun areas to stop in, and all of them do offer some opportunity to go and explore. One of my personal favorite snacks or rest stops is in Madison, Wisconsin, because we actually take you the night before the rest day on a private after hours tour, a guided tour of the Trek headquarters. That's what this picture is here. So you'll get to tour the headquarters, and then afterwards we do a lovely group dinner at the Trek Lodge, which is this little private building that sits on Trek's private mountain bike trails. And so we'll actually get all together to dine there. It's a really lovely setting to be able to roll into a rest day. I should preface as well, going into every single rest day, we will be doing group dinners together. So we'll have a group dinner always, and then the next day, Lunch and dinner are expected to be on your own during your rest days. These are also great opportunities for you to go out and, or for you to have your family and your friends meet up with you on trip, because you do have this extra day to play with and to go and see some people that you love. Now, we do ask on rest days, unless it's absolutely urgent, your guides are off the clock. Not really, because they're actually grocery shopping and doing laundry and getting the trailer restocked for the next 10 days. So they are still working. So we do ask that you let them be and let them do what they need to do, because they also deserve the rest just as much as you guys do. And trust us, you'll want it. All right, that segues into family visits quite nicely. Now, this is one of the most unique aspects of a cross country of this trip specifically, because it is so much fun as a guide to be able to get to know you to such a deep level that we get to know your loved ones, your significant others, your kids, your parents, your dogs, and your cats. And so it's so fun when we get to have some of your loved ones and your friends and family join in on trip for a few days. Now, along with this kind of unique aspect of this trip, we do have to set a couple guidelines in place just to make sure that everyone is on the same page and to keep our riders' safety in mind. So a few things that we ask to adhere by: all our guides must be notified at least 7 days in advance of any guest joining. The reason being, we need that advanced notice, one, just to be able to prepare for it, but then two, to notify specifically restaurants, catered dinners, anything like that that we need to adjust headcount for. We need to know those numbers at least 7 days in advance. So that's our one big ask. Second, visitors are expected to pay their own way for all meals and any extra hotel rooms if an extra hotel room is needed. If a guest is going to be joined for a catered meal, we will actually charge back the guest who is being visited based on however much that dinner is costs. That will be communicated to you when the extra person is added to a catered dinner. But please just make sure that you know that. And then visitors are also expected to handle their own transportation. They are not permitted to ride along in the Trek travel van. That is not allowed. And they're also not allowed to drive along on that day's route. And this is just due to rider safety. So they can come along and they can meet us in the next town, but they cannot be in the van and they cannot ride along with us. Now, if a visitor does want to ride a bike with the group, then all of the same rules apply that I just mentioned, but they are allowed to ride on our route. Visitors are expected to sign a waiver and follow all of the Trek travel riding rules. They will also be given a safety talk by the guides to make sure that they know the expectations, just like all of you would have had on your first day. They will be expected to ride their own bike and make sure that it is in good working order, ideally getting like a tune-up or anything like that before they bring it on trip. And then they will not ride for more than 3 days. 3 days is our maximum that we allow for a visitor rider to join in. And then when riders do join in with us, they are allowed to jump in on our picnic feed zones and our lunches, but they are still expected to pay their own way for any other meals like dinners and such. All right. Now I know this is a long ways away from here, and it seems a little crazy to start thinking about all of this now and what the final day looks like, but it does require a little bit of pre-planning. So our final day is a short ride to the coast once we make it into Maine, where we get to walk across yet another beach and dip our rear wheel into, or I guess our front wheel into the Atlantic Ocean and complete our mission. This is a really fun, exciting, and a very emotional day for everyone. And at this point, when you make it here, you should feel very, very proud of yourselves. Now, once this day is complete, we shuttle you all up. We load you all up in the van. Yes, once you make it to the beach, you are done riding your bike. We do not expect you to ride into Portland. So we load you up in the van and we shuttle you into downtown to our last night's hotel. We'll give you some time to go freshen up. Like I said, this is a shorter ride, so you do have a longer afternoon to explore Portland, catch up with loved ones, or just sleep, whatever it is that you need. Now, hopefully, many loved ones are able to join us for our final night's evening, where we get together and we do a very unique final night social hour and dinner. And this actually takes place at the Press Hotel itself. So it makes logistics really easy. Nobody has to go anywhere. You just have to walk downstairs, and it's great. And this is where we serve as our final hurrah and celebrate what another great accomplishment. So we will also be having a package offering for any family and friends that would like to join for this dinner and for the following day's breakfast package as well. This information is getting buttoned up as we speak, and it will come out in our third and final newsletter that you will get from us the first week of July. So keep an eye out for that. It'll have all the final details that you should know, as well as the family and friends package as well. Okay, so what's next from here? Like I mentioned, the newsletters, you've had two that have already come out. Scott linked them up into the chat as well, so feel free to read through those and then keep your eye out for the third and final one that will come in July. Planning travel arrangements. This is actually a fun one for me because I'm not only your MC, but I am also Trek Travel's cross-country travel advisor. So I am here to help with any of your pre and post hotel arrangements that you might not have already. I'm also happy to get connected with family and friends who do plan to visit you, either the beginning, the middle, any rest days, or even at the end of the trip. I'm also happy to help schedule any rest day massages that you guys might need as well. Another kind of aspect of recovery that I missed, but definitely important. So if you would like to start any of these conversations with me, my email is linked right there, anna.ricci@fora.travel. I know this trip, I know how it's run, and so I'm happy to help be a guidance, another, I guess, helping resource for you guys, but to also understand what is actually needed and expected of visitors and all of these details. Next is calling us if you have any questions. And when I say call us, I mean call Joe. You guys should all have Joe's phone number, but it is linked here as well. If you guys have any lingering questions, you can feel free to reach out to him. And then I think there was also a WhatsApp group chat that was started with your group. And I think Brent and Scott were thrown into that. So they are also a resource to ask any questions. However, keep in mind that these guys are still guiding and are out in the field up until cross country starts. And then lastly is get ready for your trip. Keep gathering the supplies you need. Take a look at that packing list. What don't you have yet? What should you be getting? Be trying out some different hydration and fluids and things like that that you know that you really like. Making sure you have all the kits and gears and gadgets and all the things that you need to have to make sure that this trip is going to be fun and memorable. And like I said, reach out to us if you have any questions where we can further help set you up for success. All right. The next slide just has your guide contact information on it. These are your two lovely gentlemen that we have on this call today. They guided this trip last year together, and they're super excited to get back out there with you guys this year. So like I said, email them, WhatsApp. They are here for you. And then lastly, I just want to say a big old thank you. Thank you to the Trek Travel crew that's on here today. Thanks to the guides for taking a time away from your busy day. And thank you to all of you for joining in on this call and allowing us to help better set some expectations. So with that, I will open up the floor to anyone that might have any questions that maybe weren't answered in the chat already. You can feel free to turn on your camera and your microphone, and I'm going to turn off all of our spotlights. Well, maybe we'll just leave Brent.
I do have one thing. Something you kind of touched on, Anna. It is very important. Well, first of all, it's awesome when we have visitors. It's great having people on the bikes as well, as long as we're being safe, because it's just someone with fresh legs that can kind of block the wind and pull everybody, some fresh conversation. But as far as kind of what we've changed to give ourselves plenty of time to make sure we can accommodate when you do have visitors at dinner, maybe if you think you might have some surprise visitors or a loved one, I just thought of this now, so sorry to put you on the spot, Joe. But either give them Joe's information or our guide information. You know, we are really good at keeping secrets, but that way they can kind of let us know. It'll still be a surprise to you, we promise. But that way we can just make sure we're very prepared and it's, you know, a great situation for everyone. So just kind of something to think about if you have a spouse or a loved one or a friend. So just reaching out to us and making sure that we are well informed. Super important.
I just want to say how great it is to see you all today and put some faces and names. And I'm glad you guys could all make it live here with us.
To say this was super helpful. Thank you.
It looks
Awesome.
like there was one unanswered question in the chat about rain gear. I know we've had a lot of guests in the past wearing Shower Pass, Pacific Northwest brand, and have had great success with that. Keeps them nice and dry. So check out Shower Pass.
Is that spelled the way it sounds, like the word shower and pass?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Awesome. Looks like everything else was answered in the chat. It says anyone any other questions? We got some good recommendations on some top tube bags. I also recommend that one. I don't personally have it, but I'm jealous of everyone who does have it on trip. Awesome. Brent just linked in Shower Pass. Awesome. DI2. Yes, I think Brent addressed this already. Your guides will make sure to check DI2 every day. DI2 is your electronic shifting system on your bike. One thing to note on that though is just to make sure your guides will go over this, but when you put it in your hotel room, just make sure that the buttons on your shifters aren't getting clicked up against a wall. If you lean it up against the wall and it pushes the button in, it's holding that down and that'll drain your DI2 battery overnight. So we don't want that, but that's something that those are some of the nitty-gritty details your guides will walk you through when you guys start on your trip. Anything else? Any other questions? All right. Everyone's ready? Is everyone ready to like roll out the door tomorrow? Michael's like, yeah.
You don't take 3 months away from them now, Anna. There's a lot of good summer riding to be had here.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. We are just getting into the best part of training season when you can actually start riding outside again, right? Yup, yup. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all once again. Brett, you had something to say, it looked like. Okay, all right. We appreciate you guys' time. Thanks for joining us. Like I said, you will get a recording copy of this presentation, so feel free to refer back to it if you need to, and then also take a look at those newsletters for some extra resources. And yeah, we're here for you if you guys need it. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Cheers.